Hey coin collectors and treasure hunters. Welcome to the Expensive Coins History channel. Today, we're diving into the top 7 most valuable and rare Canadian 1-cent coins. From hidden gems to coins worth a small fortune, you won't believe what some of these are selling for. Stick around to see if your pennies are worth way more than you think. The 1965 no-mint marked Queen Elizabeth II Canada 1-cent coin. Although millions were produced, certain varieties and conditions make some of these pennies far more valuable than most people realize. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly what makes this coin special, what varieties to look for, why some are rare, and what these coins are truly worth in today's 2025 market. The 1965 Canadian penny features the young portrait of Queen Elizabeth II by Arnold Machin on the front and the classic maple twig design on the reverse. As with all Canadian pennies of this era, there is no mint mark, because most circulating coins were struck at the Royal Canadian Mint in Ottawa, which did not place mint marks on its coins at the time. The composition is primarily copper, giving these coins their rich reddish-brown tones that collectors love. Even though over 300 million pennies were struck in 1965, not all were identical. Small but important design variations exist, and these variations play a major role in determining a coin's collectability and value. When examining a 1965 penny, the first thing collectors look for is the bead variety. Some coins feature small beads around the rim, while others feature large beads. The second feature is the shape of the number 5 in the date. Some coins have a pointed 5, while others have a blunt 5. These combinations create several distinct varieties. Among these, the small beads pointed 5, small beads blunt 5, large beads blunt 5, and especially the large beads pointed 5 are the most recognized. The large beads pointed 5 variety is considered the rarest business strike version. Because of its scarcity, collectors often pay a premium for it, especially in higher grades. This is where the real excitement begins for hobbyists, because the difference between a common coin and a desirable one can come down to just a subtle detail. What truly adds to the appeal of the 1965 penny is how many of these coins are still sitting unnoticed in drawers, jars, and old containers across Canada and beyond. Most circulated examples are extremely common and worth very little, but high-grade examples, coins with sharp details, full original copper luster, and especially those belonging to the rarer varieties can command real value. The combination of condition and variety can elevate a simple penny into a collectible item worth far more than its face value. Condition is everything. A heavily worn 1965 penny will almost always be worth only a few cents, no matter the variety. However, once a coin reaches mint state condition, with crisp edges and clear details, collectors begin to take notice. Mint state coins are far rarer than people imagine, especially because copper is a soft metal that scratches and dulls easily. A 1965 penny that has survived decades without heavy wear is already unusual. Combine that with a rare variety and you have a coin that the market responds to strongly. So what about value in 2025? The good news is that the market for Canadian copper coins remains strong. Ordinary circulated 1965 pennies usually sell for only a few cents, primarily for curiosity or copper value. But higher-grade examples begin rising quickly, especially if the coin displays attractive color or has been well preserved. Mint state coins from the common varieties can range from a few dollars to several tens of dollars, depending on their grade. Where things become truly interesting is in the rare varieties. A 1965 large beads pointed 5 in mint state condition can sell from the high tens into the low hundreds of dollars depending on sharpness, luster, and how perfect the coin is. Exceptional examples that are professionally graded and certified can command even more, because collectors trust high-grade copper coins with authentication behind them. Error coins, such as off-strikes or die cracks, can also add value when genuine, creating another layer of opportunity for collectors and sellers. All of this makes the 1965 Canadian penny a genuinely exciting coin for beginners and experts alike. It is affordable to collect, easy to search for in bulk old coin lots, and has enough varieties and nuances to keep the hunt interesting. And because the penny has been discontinued in Canada, interest in older copper cents continues to grow among collectors who appreciate the history and craftsmanship that these coins represent. If you happen to own a 1965 penny, take a close and careful look at it. Examine the beads around the rim. Look at the shape of the number 5 in the date. Check the overall condition, luster, and level of wear. You may have a common penny worth a few cents, or you might be holding a rare variety that collectors are willing to pay real money for. The difference can be subtle, but knowing what to look for is the key. As we move through 2025, the market for classic Canadian copper coins remains stable, with strong interest in varieties and high-grade examples. While not every 1965 penny is valuable, the right combination of rarity and preservation can make this small copper coin surprisingly rewarding. Keep searching, keep learning, and you might just uncover a hidden treasure in your own collection. The 1968 no mint marked Queen Elizabeth II Canada 1 cent coin. Although it is one of the most common pennies produced by the Royal Canadian Mint, it remains a fascinating piece of Canadian numismatic history. In this video, we'll explore its origin, design, production, rarity, and the circumstances in which this humble copper coin can actually be worth more money in today's market, especially in 2025. The story of the 1968 Canadian penny begins during a period of rising national identity and evolving coin designs. On the obverse side, this coin features the youthful portrait of Queen Elizabeth II, a design created by the well-known sculptor Arnold Makin. This portrait appeared on Canadian coins for over 2 decades and is still one of the most admired depictions of the Queen in numismatic circles. On the reverse side of the penny, the classic maple leaf twig appears in full detail, carrying the long-standing symbol of Canada's natural heritage. This design, consisting of 2 maple leaves on a single stem, has been iconic on Canadian cents since 1937. The coin itself is struck in bronze, composed primarily of copper with small amounts of tin and zinc, giving it the rich reddish-brown tone that collectors appreciate, especially in well-preserved examples. One major point to understand is the massive scale of production for the 1968 penny. More than 300 million were minted, making it extremely common in circulation. This is why the coin carries no mint mark. In 1968, the Royal Canadian Mint in Ottawa was the sole producer of these cents, and at that time, no mint mark was included for coins struck there. Because so many were produced, circulated examples are abundant even today. Most people who find one in their pocket change or coin jar will unfortunately not be holding a rare treasure, but rather a typical coin of its era. But even common coins can become interesting under the right circumstances. When it comes to value, condition is absolutely everything. Most circulated 1968 pennies are worth only a few cents due to heavy wear, scratches, discoloration, or loss of original luster. However, coins that escaped circulation and were kept in pristine condition tell a very different story. Uncirculated examples with bright original copper red color, free of spots and blemishes, can attract collector interest. In some cases, high-grade mint state coins, especially those certified by professional grading services, can command premiums far above face value. Perfectly preserved examples graded in the mid to high mint state range can sell for several dollars and occasionally much more when the appearance and luster are exceptional. Another factor that can influence value is the presence of minting errors. While standard 1968 pennies are common, error coins are far less common and can be far more valuable. Examples include off-center strikes, double die obverse or reverse varieties, clipped planchets, die cracks, and other unusual anomalies created during the minting process. Genuine mint errors can transform a penny worth almost nothing into a coin valued at several dollars, dozens of dollars, or in rare extreme cases, even more. Each error must be evaluated individually based on its severity, rarity, and overall appeal. As we move into the 2025 market, coin values for most 1968 pennies remain modest. Circulated coins typically carry only minimal premium. Uncirculated coins with original red luster may sell for a small but respectable amount, often ranging from cents to a few dollars depending on visual quality. Higher-grade certified examples can command more significant prices, sometimes reaching the $20 range or occasionally higher when the color, strike, and preservation are exceptional. Rare mint errors and high-grade red examples continue to be the only categories capable of bringing truly strong prices. For the majority of coins from this year, however, expectations should remain realistic. Their value lies more in their history than in their price. Still, the 1968 Canadian penny has a lasting legacy. It reflects an era of traditional Canadian design, copper composition, and the early portrait era of Queen Elizabeth II. Though it may be small, it represents a chapter of Canadian history that continues to capture the interest of collectors. And even if your penny is not worth a great deal of money, it still tells a story of craft, culture, and a time when copper coins passed through the hands of millions of Canadians. If you believe you have a 1968 penny with potential value, the best starting point is a careful inspection. Look for bright red luster, sharp details, and absence of wear. Check for unusual features that might indicate an error. If the coin looks especially sharp, consider consulting a grading service or a trusted numismatic expert. A small investment in evaluation can make a significant difference in determining whether your penny is an ordinary circulation coin or a quietly valuable piece of Canadian monetary history. 1972 No Mint Mark Queen Elizabeth II Canada 1-cent coin. This coin is one of the most commonly encountered Canadian pennies from the modern era, yet it continues to spark curiosity among collectors because of its age, history, and the story surrounding its potential value. Even though the Canadian penny was officially discontinued years ago, many people still discover these coins in jars, old drawers, and inherited collections, wondering whether their 1972 penny might be worth far more than 1 cent. Today, we are going to break that down clearly and professionally. The 1972 Canadian 1-cent coin belongs to the Bronze era of Canadian pennies. At that time, the coin was struck in bronze, composed mostly of copper with small amounts of tin and zinc. It weighs a little over 3 grams, is small in size, and carries the classic maple leaf design that Canadians instantly recognize. On the reverse side, you see the twin maple leaves on a twig, a design that has been a hallmark of the Canadian cent for decades. On the obverse side, the coin features the portrait of Queen Elizabeth II in her youthful profile, which was the standard portrait used on Canadian coins at that time. One key detail you will immediately notice is that the 1972 cent has no mint mark. This is completely normal. Canadian pennies from this period did not carry mint marks unless they came from specific special productions. Most circulation pennies, including the 1972 cent, were produced at the primary mint facility and therefore did not carry any distinguishing mint mark. For this reason, the term "no mint mark" is not a rare variety for this year. It simply means that the coin is part of the standard circulation issue. Now let's talk about mintage and rarity. The 1972 penny was produced in huge numbers. The mintage for this year was extremely high, reaching into the hundreds of millions. Because of this massive production volume, the coin is considered very common. Millions were issued into circulation, and a significant number still exist today in collections and coin jars across the country. This means that for most people, a regular 1972 penny will not be rare, and it will not automatically be worth a lot of money. However, rarity is not the only factor that can drive value. Condition plays a very important role. Most 1972 pennies you find in circulation will show signs of age, wear, dents, scratches, discoloration, and surface marks. These heavily circulated pieces carry only minimal value to collectors. They might be worth a few cents to $1 at most, depending on who is buying and what condition they are willing to accept. Value changes dramatically when we talk about uncirculated examples, especially those that have maintained their original red copper color and shine. A 1972 penny that has never been used in circulation, with sharp details, clean surfaces, and strong luster, is far more desirable. Collectors refer to these coins as being in mint state. The highest grades are given to coins that look as though they were just struck yesterday. These coins can be worth noticeably more, sometimes a few dollars and occasionally higher when certified and preserved well. Another factor that can influence the value is the presence of errors or unusual varieties. While the 1972 Canadian cent does not have famous major varieties like certain other coins do, there are occasional mint errors that can occur in any year. These include off-center strikes, die cracks, doubling, or unusual planchet defects. Such coins, if genuine and dramatic, can bring more money from specialized collectors. These, however, are not commonly found, so most 1972 cents will not fall into this category. Now what about the big question, is the 1972 penny worth a lot of money? For the vast majority of examples, the answer is no. Most are extremely common and exist in huge numbers. A regular circulated coin will not bring in significant value. But if you have an exceptional coin, one kept in mint state, or one with a certified grade from a recognized grading service, then you may see higher values. Still, the 1972 penny is not known for producing very expensive sales like rare coins from the early 20th century or coins with extremely low mintages. As for 2025 market value, the general pricing remains stable and modest. For circulated coins, the value is typically very low. For uncirculated examples, the market usually supports modest collector premiums. Prices have not shown major spikes and are expected to remain steady due to the large number of surviving examples. While the penny is no longer produced, that alone has not been enough to drastically increase the value of common dates. What gives a coin its true financial value is rarity, condition, and collector demand, not simply age or the fact that it is no longer minted. If you have a 1972 penny at home, take a good look at it under good lighting. Look for signs of strong detail, original shine, or anything unusual in the strike. Compare it to grading images online to estimate the condition. If you truly believe it is in exceptional mint state, consider having it professionally graded. A certified grade can increase the coin's desirability among collectors who prefer authenticated examples. The 1972 penny, although common, still holds a lot of charm. It connects us with a time when pennies were used daily, when they were kept in pockets, purses, and school lunch money. Even if it isn't worth a fortune, it remains a tangible link to Canadian history, and for many collectors, that alone makes it worth keeping. The 1981 no-mint mark Canadian 1-cent coin featuring Queen Elizabeth II. Many people wonder whether this small copper penny could be worth a lot of money, and today we will explore its full history, its rarity, the reason some examples may carry higher value, and what it is realistically worth in the year 2025. Let's begin with the story of this coin. The 1981 1-cent features the familiar portrait of Queen Elizabeth II on the obverse, created during an era when pennies were still produced in massive quantities for everyday use across Canada. On the reverse, you find the iconic maple leaf twig, a design long associated with Canada's smallest denomination. These coins were composed primarily of bronze, consisting mostly of copper, giving them that traditional red-brown tone collectors recognize instantly. In 1981, the Royal Canadian Mint produced an extremely large number of 1-cent coins. Over 1 billion examples were struck for circulation, making this one of the most common pennies ever minted in Canada. Because of this huge mintage, the standard 1981 penny without any special mint mark is generally considered a regular issue coin rather than a rare collectible. Millions entered circulation and survived in large numbers, meaning most examples are easy to find today. However, even a common coin can become desirable under the right conditions. The major factor that affects the value of a 1981 penny is condition. A circulated penny that has been used for years will show wear, dull surfaces, and possibly spots or discoloration. These coins, even though they may appear old, fall into the category of common items that usually hold only their face value. But in collectors' markets, uncirculated coins, coins that were never used, never handled roughly, and still retain their original luster, are far less common than circulated examples. These mint-state coins can command higher prices because collectors always look for quality, originality, and appeal. Some of the highest levels of value for this coin come from coins graded in the upper mint-state range. A bright red example that still shows its original copper brilliance can be worth significantly more than a typical circulated penny. When a coin grades in the MS-64, MS-65, or even MS-66 range, especially with a fully red color designation, its value rises sharply because these high-end survivors represent only a tiny percentage of the total minted. While the vast majority of 1981 pennies are worth a penny, a top-grade piece certified by a professional grading service has the potential to bring in far more, sometimes reaching tens or even over $100 for the rarest and best-preserved examples. Another factor that occasionally adds interest is the presence of mint errors. Errors such as misstrikes, off-centers, die cracks, or planchet flaws can appear on pennies from any year, including 1981. While most errors found on these coins are minor and common, major errors can increase value significantly. Error collecting is a very specialized field, and the price depends heavily on the type of mistake, the visual impact, and collector demand. It is also important to understand the influence of the penny's historical context. Canada discontinued the production of pennies in 2012, meaning coins like the 1981 issue are no longer being produced and now represent an era that has permanently ended. This adds long-term sentimental and collector interest, although it does not automatically make every penny valuable. The removal of the penny from circulation increased curiosity in older examples, but rarity still relies on condition and special traits, not simply age. Now let's talk about the realistic market value of the 1981 no-mint mark Queen Elizabeth II penny in the year 2025. For the average person finding this coin in a jar, a drawer, or an old collection, the value is usually just 1 cent. A circulated example, even one that looks reasonably nice, generally sells for no premium because the supply is still huge. However, an uncirculated coin, one that has never been used and still displays full mint red color, may be worth anywhere from around $1 to several dollars depending on its grade and eye appeal. Coins that have been professionally graded in the higher mint state categories, such as MS65 or MS66, can climb into higher ranges. Exceptional pieces in the top grades can sell for several tens of dollars, and the finest examples can reach into the low hundreds. These higher values are the exception rather than the norm, but they do exist and are driven by collector demand for the best available examples. If you believe you have a high-quality or unusual 1981 penny, it can be worthwhile to examine it closely under good light or even seek professional evaluation. Collectors pay the most for coins that have not been cleaned, are free of scratches, and show their original copper brilliance. As we wrap up, remember that the 1981 Canadian 1-cent coin is a fascinating piece of Canadian numismatic history. While most examples are extremely common, the potential for higher value exists in coins that remain uncirculated, coins with exceptional red color, or coins that display interesting mint errors. In 2025, the market continues to recognize quality and rarity, not just age. If your coin meets those higher standards, it may be worth more than you expect. 1993 no-mint mark Queen Elizabeth II Canada 1-cent coin. Although it may look like an ordinary penny, there is a lot more behind its story than most people realize. We are going to break down its history, features, rarity, and of course its market value and worth in the year 2025. If you own one of these coins or have a jar full of old Canadian pennies, stay tuned, because this one is full of details every collector should know. The 1993 Canadian 1-cent coin belongs to the classic era of copper Canadian pennies. It carries the familiar portrait of Queen Elizabeth II on the obverse, designed by the renowned sculptor Dora de Pettery Hunt. This portrait style was used through the 1990s and became one of the most recognizable designs in the Canadian series. On the reverse side, you will find the iconic maple leaf twig design, a symbol of the nation and a long-standing emblem of Canadian 1-cent coins. Made from bronze, consisting primarily of copper, the coin has the warm reddish tone that collectors associate with traditional pre-1997 Canadian pennies. Now let's talk about its production. The 1993 1-cent coin was struck without a mint mark, which is completely normal for Canadian pennies from this period. Canada's Ottawa Mint produced more than 700 million of these coins, making it one of the heavily circulated issues of that decade. As a result, most examples of this coin spent years in circulation, passing through countless hands and accumulating wear along the way. Because of this, well-preserved 1993 pennies are getting harder to find, even though the overall mintage was large. Although the high mintage makes the coin common, it still has historical charm. The year 1993 sits near the end of the classic copper era. Only a few years later, Canada would switch from bronze to plated steel and zinc compositions. And less than 2 decades after that, Canada would retire the penny altogether in 2012, removing it from circulation and officially ending one of the longest-running coins in the nation's history. This alone gives the 1993 penny a certain nostalgic value, since it represents a time before the era of rounding cash transactions and before the complete disappearance of pennies from day-to-day life. Even with its historical context, the question most people have is this: is the 1993 1-cent coin rare? The answer is that it is generally not considered rare. With such a large number produced, most 1993 pennies do not stand out in terms of scarcity. There are no widely reported mint errors or special varieties for this year that drive prices to unusually high levels. That means most examples remain relatively easy to find in circulated condition. However, rarity is not the only factor that affects value. Condition plays a huge role. A heavily circulated 1993 penny will usually hold only its basic collectible interest and sentimental worth. But a coin in excellent condition, especially one that retains its original red luster with bright copper shine, is noticeably more desirable. Uncirculated coins are harder to come by because most of the 1993 batch stayed in circulation for years before pennies were removed from day-to-day use. Coins that avoided wear, those stored in rolls, sealed sets, or old personal collections, can command higher prices. So what is the actual market value of the 1993 no-mint mark Canadian 1-cent coin in 2025? For an average circulated example, the value typically remains at or slightly above face value. In most cases, collectors might pay only a few cents for a circulated piece. Lightly circulated coins may bring a small premium, often still under $1 depending on the buyer. The real interest appears when you get into higher-grade coins. An uncirculated 1993 penny with strong color and minimal marks can sell for more, though still within a modest range, generally from a few cents to a few dollars depending on its visual appeal and the collector market at the time. While none of these figures are considered high value, pristine examples do hold more weight in numismatic circles because quality continues to decrease as more years pass. Even though the 1993 penny is not extremely valuable, it holds an important place in Canadian coin collecting. It represents an era that has now ended, it reflects the familiar artistry of Canada's currency designers, and it serves as a reminder of how much everyday money has changed. Many collectors enjoy building full-date sets of Canadian pennies, and the 1993 issue remains an essential piece in that timeline. Its value lies not only in monetary worth but also in its role as part of a larger collectible series that spans over a century. If you own one of these coins, take a moment to examine its condition. Look at the details on the maple leaves, the sharpness of the portrait, and the quality of the surfaces. A coin with minimal wear, strong luster, and clean fields is far more appealing to collectors than one with scratches, discoloration, or heavy wear. Store your better examples in protective holders to preserve their condition, because appeal will always remain one of the most important value factors for copper coins. The 1993 no-mint mark Canadian 1-cent coin is a common but historically meaningful piece. It is not considered rare, and most examples are worth a small amount in today's market. But higher-grade coins can bring in modest premiums, especially among collectors who appreciate the copper era and the portrait of Queen Elizabeth II. Its true appeal comes from what it represents, a time of traditional Canadian coinage and the final decades before the penny was retired completely. 1994 no-mint mark Queen Elizabeth II 1-cent coin from Canada. At first glance, it might seem like just another copper-colored cent from the 1990s, but as always in numismatics, every coin carries a story, and the details matter. Whether you found one in your change, inherited a collection, or are just wondering if this coin could be worth money today, this video will give you everything you need to know. The 1994 Canadian cent belongs to the classic small cent series that Canadians use daily for over a century. This coin features the portrait of Queen Elizabeth II on the obverse, designed to reflect the monarch's maturity and dignity, along with the familiar inscriptions used throughout her reign. On the reverse, the legendary maple leaf twig design appears once again, an iconic image that served as the face of the Canadian penny for decades. The coin was struck in bronze and weighs about 2.5 grams, with a diameter a little over 19 millimeters, giving it the look and feel of the traditional Canadian cent most people recognize. The Royal Canadian Mint produced a very large number of these coins in 1994. Over 600 million pieces were minted, making it one of the more plentiful issues of the decade. Because of this extremely high mintage, most 1994 pennies are still considered common. You can find them in old jars of change, in forgotten drawers, or in inherited coin boxes. However, the key detail that collectors look for is not the date alone, but the condition. Most of these coins circulated for many years, which means they picked up scratches, nicks, dulling, and other signs of wear. While the date itself is common, what is far less common is a 1994 penny that has survived in outstanding condition. Coins with full original mint luster, sharp edges, clean surfaces, and no visible circulation wear are significantly harder to come by. These premium examples usually come from mint sets or from individuals who saved their coins right when they were issued. Because so many circulated heavily before Canada discontinued the penny in 2012, high-grade surviving examples are much scarcer than the mintage number would suggest. Collectors focus on several factors when evaluating this coin. Condition is absolutely the most important. A beat-up 1994 penny with heavy wear will usually only be worth a few cents to collectors, mostly for novelty or for filling a basic date collection. But an uncirculated example, one that looks almost exactly as it did when it left the mint, can command a much higher value. Another factor is whether the coin came from a mint set. These coins were never meant for circulation and often display better surfaces and better strike quality. Although not rare in the absolute sense, mint set examples usually appeal more to collectors. And now for the question everyone asks: is the 1994 no-mint mark Canadian penny worth a lot of money today? The honest answer is that most examples are not, especially if they show signs of circulation. A typical worn 1994 penny might sell for around 10 to 30 cents in today's market depending on the buyer and condition. Uncirculated examples, especially those with original red luster, can reach a value around $2 to $3. High-grade certified examples can go slightly higher, but even then, they remain modest in value compared to truly rare Canadian cents from earlier decades. In 2025, the market for modern Canadian pennies remains steady but not explosive. Collectors appreciate these coins for their nostalgia and historical connection to Queen Elizabeth II's long reign, but the large mintage and wide availability prevent huge price increases. Still, a well-preserved 1994 cent is more desirable than a worn one, and there is always a small collector market for high-grade pieces. The coin's value may grow slowly over time, especially as high-condition examples become harder to find, but it is not expected to become a major rarity. So, should you keep your 1994 Canadian penny? Absolutely. Even if it is not extremely valuable, it represents a piece of Canadian history from a time when pennies still jingled in everyone's pocket. If yours is in excellent condition, it may be worth holding on to, especially if you plan to build a full collection of late-century Canadian cents. If you have one from a mint set or one that appears flawless, that is even better, as those are the coins most likely to maintain or grow in value over time. The 1994 no-mint mark Queen Elizabeth II 1 cent coin is a fascinating reminder of Canada's traditional bronze cent series. It is widely available, affordable for new collectors, and enjoyable to examine for anyone interested in the history of Canadian currency. While it is not considered rare and is not worth a fortune, high-grade examples do hold collectible value, and the coin remains a popular and nostalgic artifact of Canadian life in the 1990s. If you have one of these coins, especially in beautiful condition, it is absolutely worth keeping as part of your collection. 1995 no-mint mark Queen Elizabeth II Canada 1 cent coin. This small copper-colored coin may seem ordinary at first glance, but collectors often wonder if certain years, minting variations, or unique conditions can make even common pennies worth far more than face value. In this video, we will explore the history behind the 1995 Canadian cent, the story of its design, why some people believe certain 1990s pennies can be valuable, and what the 1995 issue is actually worth in the current 2025 market. The Canadian 1-cent coin carries an important place in Canada's monetary history. For generations, the penny served as the smallest denomination in circulation, helping shape everyday commerce long before electronic transactions took over. By the mid-1990s, the penny had already undergone major changes in composition and design. The 1995 cent features the well-known portrait of Queen Elizabeth II on the front, sculpted with precision and used on Canadian coins for many years. On the reverse side, the iconic maple leaf design represents Canada's identity and remains one of the most recognizable images on any Canadian coin. Though millions of these coins were minted for circulation, they still remain an interesting chapter in the final decades before the penny was discontinued in Canada. The 1995 Canadian cent was produced in large quantities, and the no mint mark you see on the coin simply indicates that it was part of the regular business strike series. Canada did not use mint marks on its circulating pennies during this period, so the absence of a mint mark does not indicate an error or rarity. Instead, it reflects standard production. Many people misunderstand this detail and assume that no mint mark might suggest something unusual, but in this case, it is completely normal. What truly determines a coin's value from this year is not the mint mark but the condition. Circulated coins from 1995 are extremely common. Most show normal wear from years of use, including scratches, dull surfaces, and reduced detail. These pieces typically hold only sentimental value or a basic collector interest and usually trade for around face value. However, when a coin has survived in exceptional condition, with bright luster, sharp details, and almost no wear, collectors take notice. High-grade examples of 1995 pennies are harder to find because most were used daily and not preserved when new. Even with its high mintage, the 1995 penny still attracts collectors who appreciate late-era Canadian cents. These were among the final decades before the government decided to discontinue the penny altogether. Because of that, some collectors enjoy building complete year-by-year sets, giving coins like the 1995 cent a certain nostalgic appeal. Though not rare, it represents a time just before significant change in Canadian currency policy, and that alone keeps interest alive. Now let's discuss value. In the 2025 market, the typical 1995 Canada 1-cent coin in circulated condition generally sells for only a few cents at most. However, when the coin is found in uncirculated or near mint condition, the value rises. Pristine examples can sell modestly higher, commonly ranging from a few cents up to a couple of dollars depending on the grade, eye appeal, and whether the coin has been professionally preserved. Coins graded at high mint state levels can command slightly stronger premiums but still remain within the affordable range for most collectors. While some sellers may list these coins at inflated prices, the realistic market value in 2025 remains modest. Despite its humble value today, the 1995 penny continues to be a charming collectible. It represents a key piece of Canada's currency history, especially now that the penny is no longer produced. For beginner collectors, it offers an accessible entry point into the world of numismatics. For experienced collectors, it serves as a piece to complete a series, especially in top condition. So, is the 1995 no mint mark Canadian penny worth a lot of money? The honest answer is that, in most cases, it is not. It is a common coin that circulated widely across the country. Only those examples preserved in exceptional, uncirculated condition hold any notable premium. Still, every coin tells a story, and this piece helps us remember an era of Canadian change and the gradual retirement of the beloved penny. If you found one of these coins and want to know whether yours has any potential value, focus on the condition. Look for strong shine, clean surfaces, and crisp details, especially on the Queen's portrait and the maple leaf design. The fewer marks and signs of use, the more desirable your coin becomes. Thank you for watching. If you have a 1995 1-cent coin or any other Canadian penny you'd like evaluated or want a script for another coin value video, feel free to ask in the comments. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more coin collecting insights.